If you've seen any of my videos before, then probably by now you'll realise I like to make miniature conversions, because I like to have some miniatures that are somewhat different. And today's is obviously going to be Necrons. So we're going to start off with this box set, and we're going to use the alternative bodies rather than using the bodies we've seen in this picture. So first off, we obviously need to clean the parts, so all of the legs we need to use, and we're going to use these body parts as opposed to the body like this. And we also need to clean up the arms, which, as you can see, these arms don't have hands on them, but for what we're going to do, that'd be great. I would suggest, however, when you attach the two body parts, give them time for the glue to set, and then you can clean down the seam between the two pieces to make it nice and flush. Next, we're going to need 2 boxes of these Necron Canopec wraiths. However, for the parts we're going to need, we'll still have enough parts to make full miniatures, so you're not going to lose miniatures on this. And the only parts we're going to need are these whips. The reason why we're going to need 2 boxes is because being we're doing 5 miniatures, we're going to need 10 of these whips, and you're only going to get 6 in one box. We now have our left and right arms, our legs, our bodies, the spine to the back of the bodies, necks, and the whip pieces, and they've all been cleaned up, ready for assembly. The next thing we need to do is to cut off the end of the whips, and you can see with the whips they have these little indentations. There's our 2 pieces after it's been cut in half. So we want to do this with all the whips and try and keep this the same length here if you can. Now these have all been trimmed. These parts here, which was on the ends, can now be removed. So you can either throw those away or maybe keep them for another project. Next, we've got to start gluing these onto our arms. One thing I've noticed, the end of these arms is slightly rectangular, and so is the connection on these. However, depending on how you want to make the whip look, it's for some of them, although this is a more perfect connection this way, for some of them you might want to put them that way. So I've now got my arms set up into different sets to create different poses. Might be a bit hard for you to tell how they're going to look at the moment, but the reason why I've glued the arms and the whips together first is so I can figure out what the poses are, and to help emphasize those poses later, we can look at the angle between the body and the legs, and that will help to emphasize the pose. But for now, the whips and arms need time to dry, so all I'm going to do now is glue the neck pieces onto the body and then leave them for a few hours. Now arms are attached to bodies, we need to start attaching legs to bodies. So for the first one, I wanted to make it look like the whips are making the body completely elevated off the ground. So once it's glued onto the base, it will be like that. The next one here, as you can see, the whips are both whipping round. So what I would suggest is we want a little turn instead of the legs being straight, make the legs slightly angled from the body. Next it's time for the heads, and I'm going to use the heads from the Immortals stroke Deathmark sprue. So I'm going to use these heads here, which are the Deathmark ones. The reason why I chose to use these is because they have a singular eye. I thought it helps to emphasise the idea of a unit where once they choose a target, they're focused purely on that singular target. So therefore that's why I thought these would be the best ones to go for. One more note, we're only using the heads, so therefore you will still be able to build the Immortals, so you're not losing miniatures from these. If you look at how I've done the head on this, you can see how the head's been turned from over to this side. Just as it's important to consider the positioning of the body and the legs, it's equally important to consider the position of where your head is facing. So you can see with this one, my head is facing over to this side. And the position of the head, the body and the legs all helps to emphasize the way that the miniature is moving, and therefore why the whips are turning in the way that they are.